Hey everyone, let's talk about why Bitcoin is down right now. So the biggest reason is the Trump tariffs. When Donald Trump re-announced that the tariffs he had previously announced would actually go into effect after all, with Canada and Mexico, and I believe China as well, although I'm not sure about the China angle. But anyway, like a month ago or something like that, he announced that there would be tariffs. Tariffs, of course, are bad for the economy. They cause inflation. They make everything worse. The short take is tariffs are horrible economic policy. And so therefore the stock market and everything else responded accordingly by selling off, meaning people thought, uh-oh, this is bad news for the economy. Let's sell stuff. And when people want to sell stuff, they often sell what they can, not what they want to. Bitcoin is an asset that trades 24/7, which means last night when everybody started freaking out, the only thing you could sell is Bitcoin because the stock market did not open until 8:30 a.m. this morning. And so if you wanted to sell anything prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning, meaning all of last night after the markets closed at 4 o'clock p.m. yesterday, I think it's either 4 or 4:30. I think it's 4 o'clock. Maybe it's 3:30, whatever it is. Anyway, mid to late afternoon when the market's closed. If you want to sell something, the only thing you could sell is Bitcoin because the markets were closed. So the biggest reason is the tariffs. The other is that a number of the bills in the states to establish strategic Bitcoin reserves are not making it through, with resistance from politicians not wanting to look like they are using taxpayer money to buy Bitcoin. Of course, they're using taxpayer money for 100% of what they do. So why would buying Bitcoin be any different? But, politicians are risk averse people who don't like to do new and innovative things. That's just the nature of politicians. Me personally, I don't care about strategic Bitcoin reserves. I would much rather have politicians eliminate the capital gains tax on Bitcoin. I think between the two, eliminating capital gains tax or a strategic Bitcoin reserve, whether at the federal or state level, I would much prefer capital gains tax be eliminated on Bitcoin. That is much better for Bitcoin in the long term than whether states or the US government buy some Bitcoin. But anyway, there's a bunch of different reasons. People are freaking out about the global economy. They're freaking out about potential upcoming inflation. They're freaking out about a hack that affected only Ethereum. So it had nothing to do with Bitcoin, but it was the largest hack heist in human history, I believe. Give me 1 second. It was about $1.5 billion of Ethereum got stolen from Bybit, which is an international exchange. Nobody uses them in the United States, but it's an international exchange. And the way the hackers got the Ethereum is through a mechanism that does not even apply to Bitcoin. So there's no possible way to hack Bitcoin the way they hacked Ethereum because the nature of Ethereum makes it very open to that sort of hack. And the reason Bitcoin does not work the way Ethereum works is so that it is not susceptible to those hacks. In fact, Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, specifically said he was limiting Bitcoin's functionality to work the way Ethereum works because he was concerned about people hacking it, and wanted to make sure that that would never happen. So, as a result, Ethereum is much more susceptible to hacks, and the specific hack that applied is something that could only be done with Ethereum or something like it, and could not be done to Bitcoin because Bitcoin works a different way on purpose. So you add all those things together, swirl them up, and people are irrational. Irrational means if you care about coming inflation, you ought to buy Bitcoin to shield yourself from it. But again, people, they can't brain power process a simple two-step connection like that. So, people freak out and they sell everything they own on a whim instead of asking logical questions like, hey, if I'm worried about inflation, which of my assets should I sell? Instead, they just panic sell all assets, which again makes no sense, but humans are humans. Same with even Elon Musk, who obviously is one of the greatest, if not the greatest entrepreneur who's ever lived. He owned about $1.5 billion of Bitcoin and sold it at 27,000 a coin back in 2022. And he sold it because he was freaking out about the economy and Tesla needed liquidity, meaning they needed US dollars in reserves, not Bitcoin in reserves. Now, in retrospect, they would have been way better off with Bitcoin in reserves, but because, that $27,000 Bitcoin would now be worth $88,000. So they would have more than tripled their money if they had held on to that Bitcoin. But again, Elon Musk was freaking out and he sold what he could, not what he wanted to. And what he could sell was the Bitcoin, about three-quarters of the Bitcoin that was on the Tesla balance sheet back in 2022. He sold what he could, not what he wanted to. It was just the only thing he could sell at that time when he was freaking out. Turned out to be a horrible decision in retrospect, but at the time it was the only thing he could sell. So a lot of that sort of stuff is going on right now. People freaking out, people selling what they can sell, not what they want to sell. All of which just makes it a great buying opportunity to buy Bitcoin, because while everybody else is freaking out, you can be not freaking out. And if everybody's freaking out and you are not freaking out, you can buy from the people who are freaking out at a discount, which makes it a great time to acquire Bitcoin because people are freaking out. So I've spent a good bit of time in the last few days looking for whether there's any logical reason that Bitcoin is on sale. And the answer is there is not. The Trump tariffs, even though they're bad for the economy, do not have a direct impact on Bitcoin. The Bybit hack has nothing to do with Bitcoin and couldn't even happen to Bitcoin. The strategic Bitcoin reserves, again, I don't care. Why would you want the government to have more of the world's best money? I mean, my view is I want Bitcoin in the hands of people, not in the hands of government, not in the hands of, businesses and investors, but in the hands of average people. Now, if businesses and investors buy it with money that they got through legitimate means, great. But do I want the government to tax its citizens and use that money to buy Bitcoin? I mean, I would rather the government own Bitcoin than not own Bitcoin, but I'm kind of torn. Like, why would you want a centralized, coercive monopoly government power, which is what all governments are? Why would you want them to own the world's best money? I would rather average people own the world's best money than governments. So, strategic Bitcoin reserve, all of those things. It's like, come on, people, let's keep our heads about us. That's fine. This morning, I went through my entire Charles Schwab account. I went through my Fidelity account. I went through all my bank accounts. I went through everything this morning, and about half of what, or about two-thirds of what was not already in Bitcoin, I liquidated and stuck in Bitcoin. So I used to be, prior to the last week, I was about 97% of my liquid assets were in Bitcoin. And as of the last week, I took it to 99%. Actually, mostly this morning. This morning, I took it to 99%. So I basically liquidated about two-thirds of what I had not yet liquidated to stick in Bitcoin and stuck it in Bitcoin, thereby resulting in, again, my total exposure of liquid assets to Bitcoin jumping from 97% of my liquid net worth. The rest of my net worth that is not liquid is Prospera stock, primarily just Prospera stock. And it's just not liquid because Prospera is a privately held company and not publicly traded. So, other than Prospera stock, pretty much the entirety of my net worth is Bitcoin. So anyway, so if people want to sell me Bitcoin at 87, 88,000, 89,000 a coin, you can only dangle that in front of me so long before I take you up on that offer. And that's what I did this morning. I sold a bunch of random stuff. Again, I didn't own much of it, but I was digging through old portfolios and there was like some diversified portfolio of random stuff that had, a handful of shares of Ford, a handful of shares of Pfizer, a handful of shares of Verizon, Procter and Gamble. It was just sort of a random amalgamation. And I was just like, sell all, sell all, sell all, sell all, sell all. And then I converted all of that. Since it was in a brokerage account, I converted it to FBTC, the Fidelity Bitcoin ETF. And then, yeah, any cash I could find went into Bitcoin, as it always does. So great buying opportunity. The reasons Bitcoin are on sale are irrational. And when the market is acting irrationally, you can benefit from that if you keep your wits about you. So good luck on your Bitcoin journey. I am here for anything you need. As always, thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.